Going live.
Bum, 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 bum.
Board games,
Board
board
games,
games
board
is what we're
games,
talking about.
board games,
Board games,
board
I'm
games.
not gonna shout. I am starting off this streaming with a little bit of singing. And over here to this side of me is the person known as Casey.
Yeah,
Casey's based in Nigeria, which is very far from Malaysia. There's a lot of places finishing in that same
yeah,
sound.
yeah,
Lots of places
yeah.
can be found. And all around the world, people are going to play. People may be having fun each and every day. Board games, it's what we're talking about. Board games, I'm not gonna shout. Hey!
Yeah, I
And
bet.
hello, Xate. It is a lovely surprise to see you.
Hey,
Wait, no, it's Saturday today. I don't know why I
it's
thought it
Saturday,
was
yes.
Sunday for a moment. Yeah,
I checked.
it
It's
is lovely
Saturday.
to see you here. I was momentarily surprised
I
because
bet.
for some reason I thought it was a different day. And good morning, Alan. It is lovely to see you. And good
Good
morning,
morning.
Alex.
Good morning.
And we have, as I've just introduced them, Kenechukwu Ogbuagu, KC,
Thank you.
and I am Bez. It is, if you are in um, certain parts of the world, it is bedtime. And so, but regardless of where you are, we are going to be blethering about board games. So, yeah, this is yet another busy bedtime board game blether. And today we are sharing stories via games with KC, by which I mean we're talking about sharing stories via games. We're not actually going to be playing games, although I mean, we could play
We
games.
could.
Yeah, I mean,
We
there are
could.
games that we could play via this medium. That is totally a thing, as we've done in the past. But let's start off with our
Ooh.
brilliant thing. Brilliant thing. What's the little thing which is brilliant?
Uh, T-shirts. We
Yay!
got
I'm
t-shirts.
going to share behind the scenes. We've kind of decided this beforehand. I kind of
Yeah.
coerce my guests to say, okay, what's your brilliant thing? And if they don't have something, then I'm going to give them it. So but yeah, t-shirts. We were both wearing t-shirts. Like if you
Yeah,
can
and
see, I will show. Yep, t-shirts, t-shirts.
I will fold my hand and make it like this.
Oh, so you want to be fancy and cool.
I could.
And yeah, it's t-shirts. The thing I like about them is that it's just quite easy to get them over you. And sometimes you don't want your armpit to be showing off to the world. You want
Yeah.
to cover it up a little bit. So you don't want to just put on a vest. Maybe you don't want to button things up. So maybe a standard button up shirt is a bit too much. That's why you
Yeah.
go for something in the middle.
It's easy. You just put it on. Where's my
Mm,
You just put it on, and then you're off wherever you want to go to. And it's easily in different colors. You can
mm.
get it in any color, and they are, oh my god, they are so cheap. I love cheap clothes. It's so easy to wear. T-shirts. Oh, I love t-shirts, and I love traditional wears. But if I'm not wearing traditional wear, t-shirt. Who made them?
I did
I
not do any investigation into this. It's possible that, well, you can tell me tomorrow because tomorrow's show is all about going to be about the stream. It is my monthly check-in because I've done this about 4 months now,
yeah.
and I think it's important to sometimes check in. And I was thinking this morning, how long should the shows be? Should I try to make them shorter? Because I know some people are saying, "Hey, we want to have shorter shows." Maybe try to make it only 1 hour. Some people are saying, oh, no, no, make it as long as you can. But the question is, like, I'm going to talk all about a lot of stuff tomorrow. We'll get into that tomorrow. But yeah, maybe I ideally do some research into this stuff, but then it becomes too much work. Do you know what I mean? What I like about it right now is it's kind of like I'm meeting you, and yes, we have the format, but it's just a fun time. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, you can even do a survey on Twitter or on a group on Facebook. Like, so people could just say, "Yeah, you've been watching it before. How long do you think?" Or you could even just people could just share opinions. Maybe different shows and then different time. So the
No,
gameplay
no,
better.
it's definitely never going to be at a different time. For me, it has to, for this to fit into my life, I need this to be at the same time every day. And I think
Oh,
that's what makes it work because it is at the same time every day.
really
I
sure.
know that that means that I will never speak to most American people, but so be
Hmm.
it. We hear a lot of American people on other shows anyway. Maybe I will have like, maybe I'll start up when I have a bit more time. Maybe I'll start up like
Hmm.
one show a week for my favorite American people. Maybe I'll invite Elizabeth Hargrave because, you know, I'd love to chat about, um, you know, what it's like to win the Kennerspiel des Jahres. I mean, that's quite an intense experience to,
What is
yeah.
that? I didn't hear the award you just said. What is that?
Kennerspiel des Jahres. So there's,
Okay,
it's
okay, okay. Yes,
you've got the Spiel des Jahres, you've got the Kinderspiel des Jahres, which means the children's game of the year.
yes,
I mean, is it
yes.
this or am I pronouncing it correctly, Xate?
It's the pronunciation
Kinderspiel des
that I
Jahres and
do.
Kennerspiel des Jahres. Kennerspiel des Jahres means the advanced game.
How I pronounce those words, I absolutely do not the way you pronounce it, but it's good to hear the correct pronunciation now.
And apparently, Xate is actually living in Germany and says that my pronunciation is pretty good. So thank you very much. We've
Wait,
got at. It's an at t-shirt. Yep, I've got some Americans on the evening streams, but that's very different. I mean, I'd love to have Gil Hova, not just to play games, but to actually chat to them. And that's a thing that I do slightly miss. I mean, it's possible that I could lead into that, but let's chat about all of that tomorrow. I'm getting off on a tangent. That's what I'm trying to do less of. Let's just talk about games. What have we been playing? What are their names? Yesterday, I don't think I played any games. Huh. I was, yeah, I'll explain why. I was really busy yesterday, but yeah, what games have you been playing in the past couple of days? Oh wait,
um,
I did finish I did actually finish a game. I think I finished my game of Crazy Farmers and Clotus Electriques against Alan Outson, and I won. I would be up for playing Crazy Farmers and the Clotus Electriques again, turn-based, if you want, Alan, or maybe we could play that Ponta del Diablo. Let me know which one you are interested in. Just start up a game. But yeah, what I quite like it, and having played it, I was like, wow, that was a really good game. It's on Board Game Arena, so you can play it digitally. And I realized that I really enjoy this game where it's almost perfect information. So you see everything on the board, like Gabossi. It could be, okay, you see everything and it's just about the planning and the strategy. But then you have these secret cards. And then the secret cards say things like, okay, you get to do one extra move this turn. So instead of doing 3 moves, you can do 4 moves, which can be a big difference. Or, hey, you can put a little hay barrel to block your opponent, which can really mess with people. And there's something lovely about having that spice, if you know what I mean. So it's perfect information, but with a bit of spice. And I think there's a really interesting design innovation there. And I actually got in touch with them saying, hey, I've played your game so much online. You know, I'm sorry I missed the Kickstarter, but yeah, I'd love to get in on that. So yeah, Crazy Farmers and the Clotus Electriques, as you pronounce it, because
what's
it's a
that?
French game. Clotus
Oh,
Electriques means electric fences.
okay, okay.
And it's all about going round and making big things. Anyway, so
Is it like that game? Is it like the game where you use a metal stuff and you're going through a shape, and if you touches that metal stuff, it buzzes. Just show the picture.
let me actually show you. Look at a game, or and I will show you very quickly. Oh wow, I'm apparently Ponto del Diablo enthusiast. But if we look at the game in action from Board Game Arena, so I'm going to say that. Yep, that's the one. So I'm going to say that Board Game Arena. It's a very nice
Oh, Pokemon Arena. Yeah.
implementation. In this game, you are moving around and you make these fences. So, for example, the blue player has these fences and then can go down and then they capture this area. The yellow player, if you cut into someone else's fences and you stop them, it's about taking over area. It's about cutting the other player and moving back in. But yeah, there's something really nice about a lot of what they did. And just look at that artwork. That is kind of really unique styled, limited colors, and I just really like this.
It's more of a what is it, gladiator arena. We have this game, we have the expansion, but I've not really played it. Now I have to go and check the rule books.
I mean, it's a really cool show. So, oh yes. What did I wait? Surprise and you lost. I can't remember what this was referring to. Oh yeah, well that Alan Outson's kind of explaining why they lost, and yeah. So yeah, I hope that What games have you been playing, KC? What are your highlights?
Uh, this week has been very hectic, very hectic. Okay. I know I played Dixit at the beginning of the week, and so it was more of teaching people with Dixit, and I think they loved the game more because I was losing woefully. Like, I mean, a story that it's so obvious that this is the storyteller story, and then I go and choose a different card, and I think people were actually expecting the next card that was going. I was the person that gives the point away to to people, and it was fun because they came back and rented the game, so it's a positive when people come and rent the game they've played before. And they even took more expansion. They took the Disney expansion. It was really nice. This week again, it was more of introducing people to games. So we also introduced people to Isida's new game, Dancer. So it's actually a fun game where you could be played individually or it could be played in pairs of teams.
Oh, by
So
Yesida.
yeah, but you see that. So you just you pick a card and then you have to follow the steps, the dance steps, without mentioning the dance, and people have to guess the name of the dance. And it's so funny because we love dance. Nigeria, we love dance, and there are so many dance steps in Africa in the world. So it's a good way. It's more of an encyclopedia of dance around the world, and then again, it's a fun way of learning how to do those dance. It's so funny, like when for dances that they are not funny. They're not the funny part. It's the dance that you don't know, and the whole body movement, and people are guessing like, what are you doing? So that was fun. We also introduced people to that I'm aware of, Safe Journey, and then but I spent more of this week redesigning some of our projects that I'm working on and replaying more of the games that we've been working on. So I think that's for me for this week. But I didn't play any new game, just old ones.
But sometimes it's really nice just to revisit the games that we already love. And too often we can be caught in the cult of the new, thinking, okay, what's the newest game? What's the latest game? And for sure, it's nice to open up yourself to new experiences. But the lovely thing about games is that every time you play them, it's going to be different. It's not like bubble tea. For example, if we compare, even though I might like, for example, salty matcha bubble tea, which has a creamy top, and then it's got the sourness of the matcha and then the tapioca balls. Even though I enjoy this, every time I will drink this, it will be the same taste. And so, okay, if I have it like maybe I have it again like in 2 months or 3 months, I will enjoy it again. But if I play a game, it will be totally different because we will make different choices. We are exploring it. I mean, sure, with
Exactly.
a bubble tea, I could take the piece of tapioca and bite it between my teeth, not just like swallowing it, but really enjoy it and savor the taste. I think for me,
Mm.
this is something about being mindful. And you can enjoy it in a new way, but it's always presenting itself in the same
A
way.
new
But
way. Yeah.
but with a good game is almost like a conversation, if you know what I mean, where one
Yeah.
person does something, then you do something to respond, and yeah.
I think games get more interesting if everyone on the table really understands the game. So that's how it gets more interesting because sometimes part of your own strategy is banking on the strategy that the options the next person has to play. But if they don't understand the game fully, same as or to some level, it might be you just building on a weak foundation. So if you're building your strategy on maybe this person, maybe they don't even have access to that knowledge, that information that you know. So they won't play that, they won't make that move for you to make your own counter move. So yeah, quite agree. It's get more interesting when people replay the game and they know it. Can think of how to beat the game, not even the players. You want to now beat the game itself.
Mm. And for me, we were talking a little bit about your game, um, Gabossi, which this is
Yeah.
just. And so I was actually, yeah, honestly, like I was saying that when we started playing it, I was, you know, ages ago when I read the rules, it was like, okay, I am turned off by the rules because we have to work out things. I'm just to summarize what I said on Thursday because we're interested. When it says when a player concedes the game, they lose. What does that mean? Of course, you can concede the game. Of course, you can give up. But we house ruled that okay, when you have only two pieces left, you've lost because there's nothing to say that when you have only two pieces left, you have lost the game. So someone could say, well, I'm not giving up. I'm just having my king here and I'm just moving it about. And you could say that, well, don't play with those people, but you have to have some sense of genuinely what are you aiming for. And I
Mm.
think that was what was missing in this game. I mean, if you look at something where it's okay, content, this is the aim, this is the setup, this is, and so forth. It's, but then when I actually really got into it, sorry, it was like, okay, we're having, okay, actually, there's something really interesting here that at first you think, okay, this is super simple. You're just making lines of three. And when you make your line of three, you move your opponents. And then you start realizing, okay, there's certain lines of three when there's like four and there's a space in the middle. No matter which one the opponent removes, you can still make a line of three some way. And it's kind of
Exactly.
it's almost like Go. Like it feels very much like almost like it could be a classic game. Do you know what I mean? Because it does really have nice, simple rules. And the setup of that game, the placing of the pieces, that is almost the game. That is like the place where you're making so many key decisions. And so for me, now I started playing against Layla, who's very good at games. Um, they beat me once at Energy Empire by only 1 point, I should say. They but Layla, we play lots of games together recently, and Layla managed to beat me 4 out of 5 times with Gobossi. And so what that makes me feel is like, okay, I'm going to explore it and going to see more into it. And for me, this is what it's about, the conversation and exploring what is within the game. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's quite interesting about this game. A quick advice. Oh, this is a live streamer. When you lose the third time, stop playing. It doesn't get better. It just I started to I've started a lot of people play Bosi, and once you start losing, you want to keep playing because you want to prove the point that you understand it yourself. I've started and watched people play it for 12 times, and he lost for 12 times, and they made me record it. I watched. I've seen seen a lot of couples coming, and usually it's the lady that you wins. But once you start losing, the third time stop playing because mentally. And the whole design process from Bosi is actually, like you say, it's from a classic game in Kwale. So Kwale is a community in Abuja. It's where Tango is from Kwale. The designer, yeah, so I co-designed it. So Tango is from Kwale, and Obina and all of the guys that make the games. So I stayed in Kwale for a year working as a volunteer. So that
And
was how
where's
I.
Bali?
So Kwale is in Abuja. It's a
Oh,
local
okay, so
government.
Abuja is like a really big region.
Yeah. So Abuja is the capital of Nigeria. So it's a state. Abuja is a state in Nigeria, so it's the capital. And then Kwale is a community in Abuja. So I volunteered there for a year and about 4 months. So working with my former organization. So that was how we met for the first time, and we started talking about board games and started making games. So this is a game where if you go around Kwale, you see people playing it under the tree, and in the just they will dig holes, and the method is very different. So the rows are sometimes up to 10 rows. So there are so many, and there are so many street variations. Everybody have their own ways, almost like each clan have different ways of playing it. So I now started asking, we were just discussing, I think we are making games, all of us, and we started talking about games in Kwale that we can bring to the table. And so we started listing different games, and then this came out, but it was so technical, and making it how we started just thinking, how do we simplify it to the simplest form? We discussed on, I remember the conversation, Obina, Festus, thank God. So we started talking, this was 2016. 2017, that was when we really made it the first time. So I was saying, and actually there is a story behind it, because for them it's war, is a war game. So you're actually going to war. So
Yeah, because it says at the front, at the top, it doesn't tell you much, but it says it's about the unending true story of the conflicts between two kings in a village. Should we put a pin in this and come back to it in 2 seconds?
okay, okay,
So,
we could.
what I was going to say, let's talk very quickly. Let's do about our recent highlights. If you've got something that's happened to you recently, please share and tell me what your recent highlights are. I'm going to look up my photos on Twitter, but yeah. Have you done a couple of things that you have enjoyed recently?
Yes, no, yes. Okay. uh, for this week, like I said, this week is quite exciting for us because we are making games, pre-ordered games, thanks to Aaron from Tabletop Games Cafe. So he put up his own name. He's not getting anything from this. And now people pre-ordered, and we finally finished. Banks is always an issue, especially for first-time transaction. It's so we just rounded up everything on Friday, and then from Monday he came in, and we started making all the we started printing, because printing is for us the most tricky part, since we don't have machines. So we are depending on third parties. So once we are done with printing and we start folding and cutting all of those stuff, maybe the full joy. So I think my highlight this week was, running around, making sure that everything are these places where they're supposed to be. And just this week as well, we're also doing a photo not a photo shoot, a how to play video. So this will probably be the first professional how to play video that we'll be making. We had to hire a crew. We have people that are learning how to play the games. So it's part of a project called my world trip board game. I've not really talked about it much. It's funded by IOM. IOM is the International Organization for Migration.
Okay.
So the game
for organization for what?
Migration.
Migration. Okay.
Yes. So I think they are a parastatal of United Nations. So we late last year, so we started making this game to be able to help raise awareness for children in schools, and we made the prototype. We got to the we got to the we got volunteers, we trained volunteers. So we started in schools, and then pandemic started. And so schools had to lock down. So now we want to make the game outsource. So we are doing a video of the materials you need, how to make it. Obi now will be doing a video on how to make it, and then Pearl was doing a video on how to play it. So that's just, once that is done, we'll probably start talking about it more than usual. And it was designed by Felix. So Felix is designer of Village War. And so the
Okay.
very, very, very good. So it's very, very good. So I'm really excited. So this week has been just juggling between these two.
And so, yeah, that sounds like a really big week. And we've got a very recent highlight where Xate dropped a glass on the tile floor, and then they thought, oh no! But it bounced and it rolled. It did not break.
No, that
So there we go. And also, Alan Oughton's talking about henna highlights, making Alan's wife's hair brighter. So adding some henna highlights to their wife's hair. And so that is a thing. And I got to go out. I did some work where I was needing to cut keys. And all of these signposts in the streets outside in the UK just to remind people to be 2 meters apart. But I will say that when I went into the shops, I did find a bubble tea place, but for my own health and my own finances, I'm probably not going to go to this bubble tea place again. I'm going to only go to the one 6.5 miles away, because, you know, otherwise I'll keep going here and I'll be too tempted. Do you know what I mean? But because they have so many flavors, they have like probably 20, 30 different combinations. That's pretty expensive. Anyway, so while I was waiting for my bubble tea to be made, I counted the people, and there was like, I think I counted 75, something like 75 people going past without a mask on properly. Like, some of them had the mask like that, and surely you're breathing with your nose. What's the point in that? And some of the people just didn't have any mask at all, or had it around their chin. And maybe 35 people actually had their mask on properly. So only 1/3 of the people in the shopping center, while I was waiting for my bubble tea, had the mask on properly. So that's not good.
To be honest, the wearing of mask is almost the same thing here. Banks and I think banks and hospitals, it's pretty mandatory that you wear face mask. But in most places, people just carry it around with them in their pocket, or when they see an authority, you just quickly put it on. That's almost the same thing happening around here.
It's not good. I mean, come on. It's actually, I don't know if it's,
I think it's
certainly against guidelines. I mean, it just feels selfish. I understand that there's some people, it comes down to, yes, wearing a mask, there is a little bit of discomfort, but kind of enduring a little bit of discomfort for other people. Anyway, and we are talking about recent highlights. Just getting back to recent highlights, managed to submit a game to Festival, and also this morning I got a free cardboard box. I mean, I bought all these games, and I mean, I paid money for 24 copies of Yogi, but every time I get them, I just get these free cardboard boxes. Sometimes I even get free bits of paper. I mean, unfortunately, normally the bits of paper have writing on them, which I don't particularly like. But, you know, in all seriousness, I basically just got the delivery of 24 copies of Yogi, which this is how it looks. Yogi, English, USA, because it's American English, apparently, even though the proofreading was technically done by Rachel Mortimer, and it's as much British English as it is American English. But anyway, that's 24 copies. So, yeah. Ooh.
Congrats.
If you want to buy it from my shop, now it says back in stock.
You know, we
So
recently played Yogi. There was a tweet around it, so we recently played it, and it's just as always. It's always funny. You know, when people start at first, they don't understand, and then when it gets to maybe the third round, that's when it really gets serious. It's the third round that gets really serious. So yeah, it's actually a good game.
thank you. And yeah, it's Yogi Stock Guru, which I kind of, yeah, co-designed with Xate, and were, yeah, it was technically 4 minutes late to one of their deadlines, because on their website they had two different deadlines. It said Danish time, and then it said GMT plus one, but GMT plus one is not the same as Danish time, if you know what I mean. And so
Yeah,
I read the GMT plus one, and I was like, okay, GMT plus one, I still have another hour. And then Xates was like, so like it was about 3 minutes late. I sent you I copied you in the email, Xate, but well, it's in time according to one of the two things that they stated. They stated GMT plus one. No, I did it like it's 3 minutes late. I'm assuming they're not going to discount it based on 3 minutes. Do you know what I mean? And anyway, if you want to do that, then you can do that absolutely. But yeah, that was a recent highlight. You have the email, you can do that. So this is where I remind people to please comment, ask questions, thumb like, follow, and this is questionably quick questions. KC, where are you right now?
yes. I'm in the backyard of the house.
Okay, and
Yeah.
why are you in the backyard of the house?
Because they actually there's a shooting going on in the cafe, and they said I was going to constitute noise. So I had to find my own studio room, and I had to make do with those backdrop banners immediately. So quite comfortable.
I really
I'll,
like what you've done with the place. And tell me, how hot is it right now? Is it pretty hot?
I'll, no, no,
Is
it's
it
actually
pretty hot?
morning is cool. It's rainy season in Nigeria. It actually rained early hours of today, so it's quite cool. I mean, relative cool is relative compared to cool in UK. So yeah.
And
Uh,
you're wearing a necklace with what looks like some sort of bone.
yes. I love to wear. I've been wearing this. I wear it all the time. It never gets off. I think it's over 2 years on my neck. I just wear it.
Does it have any
Nothing
significance,
attached.
or is it just because it's pretty?
Just because this is the only jewelry I put on my bed.
Fair enough. And how early do you normally get up?
I don't have sleeping time, Bez. It's very, very, very difficult. So sometimes because of the time zones in the country, but if you ask me, I usually stay awake all the time. So at most, if I want to sleep, it's 4 5 hours. So
Okay,
four, I'm up. Five, I'm up. Two, I'm up.
that doesn't sound super healthy.
I know it's something I have to do for this period, and there are just things on the way to make it stop. Hopefully, so.
Okay, so that concludes our questionably quick questions. And so today we're going to be talking about sharing cultural stories via the medium of board games. So I was going to read out the top bit of gabassi, where it says, it's an area control game about the unending true story of the conflicts between two kings in a village located somewhere in Abuja. It involves 14 warriors ready to die for the cause, as well as the king, who has the privilege to commune with the elements. So, can you tell us a little bit about this story?
Okay. Just to say, in Nigeria, there are so many tribal wars. There are tribal wars. There are culture, religious wars. You could just Google them on the internet, and Sometimes it could be over anything from land to dispute, land dispute, marriage dispute. It could just be something silly, but there's that embedded tribalism and religion strife that usually go on. So it's not a new thing to see. Okay, there's this tribal war going on, and I think that's where the story around Bosi came from. Story is basically from the so there's these two families, and they are all from the royal family, and but it's about who is the king, you know, and who which it's the kingship is in turn. So, but each time there's this conflict that usually happen before somebody eventually becomes the king, and they will have to wait till another time. So each time there's a new king coming, there has to be this tribal exactly that comes around it. So that's what was represents. That if you notice the concept of the game itself, the game like we were talking before the live show, it's from a classic game in the community that people play, but in the game, we now added those elements. You could see the element of the lightning, the fire, the water. So those are things that we added in the game to represent the story on the game board. So,
Yeah, so it sounds so these are the elements that Casey is
yes.
talking about. So what was this? Because with this game, it feels like you get just little bits of information, but you know, there's not a lot of other information there. I mean, I get the sense that okay, there's little characters, and then the characters are somehow killing each other. There's a lot of conflict, and it sounds like that really ties into the. It sounds like it was a very brutal place with all the tribal wars that you're talking about, and that wars would just erupt. And certainly, I think that your game, Safe Journey, is like an example where even though it's not the actual mechanisms of the game, for me, not super exciting. It's a roll and move game where you're trying to be the first person to get across. But the interesting thing is that the
It's a
cards
dialogue.
share the story of okay, you're not just going through this moralistic landscape of snakes and ladders or through
Yeah,
this artificial
yeah,
thing of Candyland. You're seeing a little bit of okay, there's cows on the road, or
yeah,
there's police that just stop you and for
yeah,
several hours, and you
yeah.
get a little taste of this. Um, what what can we actually? Should we start off by defining what we're talking about? That feels like a good place to start, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So what is a cultural story? I mean, if presumably it has to be a culture is something that's multiple people, and how would you define a cultural story? Do you have an idea?
Mm,
Like,
uh, So I think from my own perspective is that your own way of life, how you're able to define your own story, right? Just like you said, the games, the mechanics is universal, right? The theme is probably universal. It's a war game. There are a lot of war games. It's a race game. There are a lot of race game. But I think it's the way you're able to present the story. Now that is your own from your own way of life, from your own perspective. Now, the way I would see safe journey, or the way Nigerian would see safe journey, would definitely be different from the way someone that is non-Nigeria or someone that has little knowledge about Nigeria would also see the game. Now, if you just present safe journey as a dice rolling race game, that is just one part of it, and that is not the part the designer sets for. For that's not the designer's own cultural story about it. But once you understand the designer's cultural story, you begin to relate more. And I think that's why games are always adding narrations or narratives to the rule books, because when you read that narrative, it's supposed to give you in a subtle way what this designer was feeling or what the designer is hoping to feel from those games. So I think that's the basis I understand the cultural story of board games about. And then that's why it's interesting to see that board games are also tools that you can actually use to tell these stories, from your own perspective, your own culture. You could read a book and you understand someone's culture. You could watch a movie, or you can also play a game and you understand someone's culture. Or if not, at least you get curious to want to know more about this culture. I keep telling people, chess does that for me in a very, very big way. But I don't know why most people try to either not talk about it much or probably don't just care about it. Because growing up all my life, I have been taught that the king is the strongest person in the kingdom, and I've been taught all my life that a religious person should never bear arms. Not to mention of being part of the war. I've been taught all of these things. Even up to today, children are still taught the same thing in the school. But the chess completely says different, because yes, the king is the last person, but the queen has all the powers on the board. Like the queen could go up, go back, move anywhere. And then you're seeing bishops in war. Bishop can, when someone can actually use the bishop to execute opponent piece, you're going against the normal universal story, like a religious person should not bear arm. But what you're actually doing is you're following the cultural story of the designer, because the designer, whoever designed chess would never know, or probably know. But that is their own cultural perception at the time. Because at that time, maybe the queen
Oops.
was moving in the night riding. I think that is where it's kind of solidified it when I started thinking of like games are supposed to share stories. Some games, no, not all games are abstract. Even in abstract games, there are also stories. Not some are educational games, but it could be a tool to use to pass on cultures for generations, even. So that's I think that's the foundation of everything I want to talk about.
Um, so I think that to define it, it feels like the one word you used, perspective, it's a really strong word. Every human individual has their own perspective, but then to be a cultural story, you have to have a group of individuals that have that shared perspective. It's not enough for me to say, okay, I have this story, I'm going to share it with the world. That's not what we're
Yes.
talking about. And I think for it to be a cultural story, maybe
Yes.
there, I mean, I'm not sure if it has to be transgenerational, but it definitely has to be enough people or enough history to it that it feels
Back it
like
up.
there is some cultural aspect to it. Um,
I quite
and
agree.
then sharing those stories, it means that we are basically looking at how can we allow other people to gain an insight into the stories that we have and to share our perspectives with others. And there are obviously the sharing the perspectives of the individual, and there's the sharing the perspective of the community. Because whilst now, sorry, what was it? Kwai, the place where Gabassi was started.
Yes. So why? So can you rephrase that? Why Dibosi?
No, Kwai. The place where you said the place in Abuja, where you were for several months, where people were
Yeah.
playing this game on like the 10 by 10
Yeah.
boards and stuff.
Yeah.
What was it called?
So it's to be honest, I can't pronounce the name. It's there are so many languages in Nigeria, so it's a very very I'll probably get the name later and share with you. But it has its own tribal names, like different tribal names, not one tribal name. It's just like the way Mankala has Ayo Ncho. So that same game, even in the community, has different names because there are different rules to play them.
But I think what my point was that the stories of the place where you went are being shared with, you know, other people across the world, which is pretty cool. And but then let's get into how we can do these things, because of course we can do these things through written material where you've got the cards, and you can do things like you said on Safe Journey, and we were talking about where the police stop you and things like that, where I'm yeah, Alex makes an interesting point, which the ideal situation, you could argue, is for games using emergence narratives to solidify the story. And so it's like where the actions of the players kind of coalesce with the story that you're trying to tell. For example, you could say that Pandemic, the board game, is a story about a pandemic potentially overcoming the world. But it's not really, is it? It's a story about humans working together with different abilities and everyone pitching in with their own different abilities. And it's about humanity actually coming together to solve it. And that's why I think that we can see Pandemic, even through these times, as a hopeful message. And I think it's those emergent narratives which are almost far more important. Alan asks, and what's wrong with written material? It's just a way of holding words, surely. And absolutely, it's important that you have this written material. But for example, and I keep talking about Magic the Gathering, if you have someone who is very brutal and, you know, in this game and they are super powerful, sure, that person's card at the bottom there will be a little bit of flavor text and it will express how powerful and amazing they are. But more importantly, the card will reflect their personality in some way. If they are a really big, powerful person, then their stats in the game should be more bigger and more powerful. If they are someone who's a bit of an assassin, maybe it's got an ability where you tap it and you pay a life, and then you get to kill another creature. That, no, that's just an idea off the top of my head. You know, that's the kind of thing where obviously Magic the Gathering has a high complexity ceiling, and so it allows you to make these kinds of bits of chrome. And in American style themed games, it's undeniable that there are a lot more rules than people would expect in a European style game, where the focus is on simplicity, whereas in an American style game, the focus is almost on simulation, even if the thing that you're simulating is clearly fictional. For example, you might be simulating, okay, I'm actually struggling to think, okay, even though Agricola, well, yeah, actually Agricola is a pretty good simulation now I think about it in many ways of subsistence farming. But even if it's, okay, this is a game all about aliens coming over and taking over a thing, you're going to have, okay, this alien does something little different, and this alien does something different, and so forth. And yeah, Alex says, I've used story in my games, but it was more the players following a written story rather than being involved in creating a narrative through their actions. And Alan asks, or says, I guess it depends how we define story. Does it have to be profound or follow certain rules, such as having a beginning, middle, and an end? Or is something less constructed still able to be considered story? And for me, yeah, the story, it's the snippets, because it's how you piece it together is in your own mind. For example, if you look at Holding On is a very low key game. It's a very sad game to play, where you're talking to someone about their memories, and your actions in the game, well, you've got to do actions to make sure that are physically okay, but then you've also got to do some actions to make sure that your patient, Billy Kerr, who's led a very troubled life, is actually able to share their memories. And when it comes to sharing their memories, what happens is that you get a little card, and it has a fuzzy background, and then when you reveal it properly, you actually see the new card. So the players see the memory in its full glory at the same time as the characters in the story see this. And so there's definitely, this is a cultural story where it delves into a lot of Northern Ireland's past, if you're familiar with things with the IRA and such forth.
And I also think that from what Otin is asking, like, does it have to be profound? I think what makes it a game is that there are a set of rules. So that will always be there, but I think it depends on the designer that wants to add. Okay, obviously, if you're taking characters, just like you were saying, Beth, if you're taking characters, yeah, that means there are already set of actions or set of consequences for actions or inactions because of the characters that you're using. Now that is already established in the rule book. But I think what makes it special is that your the thing that the consequence of your action or inaction is not just based on you as a character, but also based on other characters and what their actions will also be. I don't know if that makes sense, because you alone does not complete the story, or you and the board doesn't, but is the combination of everyone. It makes more sense that so for instance on Safe Journey now if all the players are the police, or if they are just police, or sorry, not just the police, all the things that you see on the Nigerian road. So from the road safety, other drivers, if they were just on the board, it could have been just another game of avoiding things on the road trip, like avoiding challenges on your path to your objective. That's what it could have been. But what makes it, I think, more character driven, or more like things can come of it, is the choice of each player to want to exercise that what is it called, the action or not. For instance, if you land on a police, it means that one player on the table there is the police, and you don't know. Now they could choose to let you go, waiting for other cars or other players that are coming, because each players will have 2 cars on the board. So that is what makes it interesting. And that is also what happens on the road. That there are sometimes you can meet a police person and he say, okay, he just says go, and you go. And you can also meet someone and say, no, you must stop. Now that's the whole story. Or you meet it could be anything. From the other drivers on the road could just decide to let you go, or they could decide to shout at you, hey, park that car, and then you have to now perform the action. So it makes it more interactive. But so that's what I think that is. I don't know if that's a response to Otin's question. So the game has rules, but the story could be for other. Like I said, if the stories were just on the board, it's already a written follow-through rules that you're following from point A to point B, and these are the things that you must pass through if you enter there. But the story keeps changing when it's played, because characters will decide, do I want to take this action or not? But of course, bearing in mind that they want to also get to point B before every other players.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely, I mean, a story insofar as it's an experience. I mean, I think that the notion of whether a story has to have a beginning, middle, and an end, I mean, that's a weird way to look at stories, isn't it? Because the story of, okay, I started off going to make this trip, and then this happened, and then this happened, but I eventually got to the place. Or, okay, I never got to it because it was too late. And I missed my events totally, which is analogous to not winning in Safe Journey. Now, I'm not sure if that's a story in the sense that Alan Outson is talking about. It's not a clear beginning, middle, end. It's not a clear set of events. The point is that's almost like a shared experience. But I think that those experiences, it's I just wanted to kind of chat about this in general, because this is the first time we've chatted about this, and then maybe in future shows I'll get into it a little bit more, because yeah, a story to Alex is where the narrative of the game transcends the physical aspects of the game, where it stops feeling like you're playing a card. And so abstract games are very literal. For example, if I play Mindleaf, where's my mind? Oh, here's my Mindleaf. So if I play Mindleaf, then when I get out the board, there is nothing that this is meant to represent other than squares. There's no name for this. Okay, these pieces, this one is actually called a puller because the next piece has to be placed close to it. And then there's the opposite piece, which is called a pusher. This is just called that you need to, there's no name for the pieces. This just means that the piece has to be diagonal after it. And then there's one where it has to be orthogonal. All the pieces do, it is very literal. And so you could argue that any game in Alex's definition, where the narrative of the game transcends the physical aspects of play, I would say that most games have a bit of this, where, okay, Go, most people are thinking about this, but someone did say, yeah, sure, Go and chess, they are all obviously analogous to war, especially chess, which when it started off as Shatranj, there were maybe originally elephants and things that were more in line with the place when it was developed in Iran. And then if you look at shogi, there's a story there of defection, of people being captured but then sent to work for the opposing army and coming on again. Now, yeah, this, and I will get to your point, Alan, but in a moment, because that is just such a meaty point. So I think that what we have here is the story, for me, has to not just, a cultural story has to be not just a game of, okay, here are some aliens and they are doing a thing, and this is a story that I have invented for this game, but a cultural story, something that feels like it matters, like it has some history behind it. Sure, there's a sense that you could argue that between two cities, so between two cities, all you're doing is you're putting things into a grid, you're putting parks and factories and pubs, but even there's a set of cultural assumptions. There's a set of assumptions that, okay, the pub goes next to the house. I don't know if do you actually have pubs?
Do we have props?
Pubs, like, remember where we went to have a drink? I mean, presumably.
Oh, pubs, yeah. Yeah, we have lounge, we have pubs.
Place to drink, and then they go to.
Yeah, so yeah, we do.
And
yes, we do. We have pubs and lounge.
Hello, Jay Foolsguards. It's lovely to see you. But and we're just talking about what is a cultural story and trying to define this. And yeah, so with a park, do you have the same development of green spaces in Abuja, or is it more, okay, this green space already exists? Because I know in London, it's almost fighting against, there's so many buildings. We need to fight against all these things, and we need to make sure that all the parks are here. Whereas something else, which comes from a different perspective, and honestly, like between two cities, makes the assumption that you have nothing, and then you put the park down. Whereas another game, it might start off, okay, you have a landscape, and My City, for example, by Rainer Knizia, makes the cultural assumption that we are starting off with green land, and then we build up the city on top of the green land, which is another way to look at it. And even that, even though it's not ostensibly a story, there is a cultural assumption being made. Sorry, you're muted.
Sorry about that. I love the example you just gave with Kenechukwu game. So I think it's actually it's a brilliant thing when people invent stories. I also have games that we've invented the whole story from, and those are things that just fantasy games. It's actually good. And again, but there's also that angle, that perspective of people learning. The games are exploding right now. I think analog games are getting into homes that 5 years ago it wasn't, 10 years ago it could not have even been dreamt of. And it's a way of people learning a lot of stuff. There are things I've gained. Just like when someone says if you can't travel, read a book. Same with watching movies. If you can't travel, watch a movie because you learn a lot. If you want to learn a little about Indian community, watch Bollywood and you will see their lifestyle at least. So I think that also should come into the game because so for instance, there are things that it's difficult for me to understand, and I'm now thinking of how to explain it to someone else that doesn't even think that games are more than chess, Monopoly, and Scrabble. So it's always easier when you say aha, and they begin to relate to it, and that's that cultural story side that we are talking about, and the need for that, because that way you would. So if you play Ticket to Ride, London, you'll probably see a lot about just London. But it's totally different from Ticket to Ride UK, but it's the same theme and it's the same mechanics. But now there are cultural stories behind them because those are things that if you go to London, you will see that bus, that red bus, because you've seen it on Ticket to Ride. Or if you go to UK, subways, those subways will always be there when you go there because that way you can always relate to it and it's an exciting thing. So, but yes, there are to answer your direct question, yeah, there are pubs in Abuja, there are buildings in Abuja, but sometimes the landscape obviously are different. But it's also understandable that the designer is designing from their own cultural perspective. And it's a good thing for us because now we are seeing, okay, there are green grass in Europe. So that's how nobody came and said, oh, okay, so there are green grass in Europe. It's just like if you're designing something in a desert in Arab now, and the landscape you're most likely going to use is a sand, because that is what you will see exactly. That's what you will see. So I think that's the same.
And in talking about it, we've got obviously the writing, the flavor text. You can have a story in the manual, and I want to say that I believe there's something lovely when, okay, when a designer says, hey, this is based on reality, this is a thing that I really care about, and hey, I'm going to share with you all the rules of the game. That's obviously the most important thing. But then I'm also going to write maybe one paragraph or even one entire page about this is why the game exists and this is a story about it. Because then that allows you to notice things within the game. And it might say, okay, like let's say let's say in Tinner's Trail, for example, a lovely game by Martin Wallace, where each time you mine one of these mines, there's more water that goes in. So every time you mine, a little water cube goes in. And every time you mine, it takes more energy based on how much water cubes are in there. And so eventually, yes, there will be more copper, there will be more materials to get out from the mine, but this is based on reality, where in Cornwall, all these mines were flooding. And so every time you worked in, they were flooding, so you had to be super efficient. And so if you went in and then you only took one copper out, then next time you went in, and so the
Water increases.
Yeah, and apparently, even selling of the Cornish pasties was based in reality, and getting something that's written about it in that saying, hey, this is actually what this is meant to represent, thinking about a little bit of the writing or the flavor text. But the most important way that I think you can think about it Is there a one-to-one relationship? How does the player's actions relate to what the story actually is? If this is a story about discrimination and subjugation of power, then it's not enough for people should feel like they want to do something, but because of their role, because of, hey, I've only got 2 eyes, but like obviously I'm talking about Seize the Power for my forthcoming game from Inside the Box. And where in that game, if you've only got 2 eyes, you get to do fewer things. If you've got 20 eyes, then you say, well, haha, I get more money, I'm going to get a job more easily, and I'm going to be able to choose when this rule affects you or not. And it's all so the actions in the game should reflect that. And if the game is about the people with more power almost stamping down on the others, then there should be a person with more power in the game who is stamping down on other people. I mean, there's an argument to say that Freedom, the Underground Railroads, people should not be playing a slaver. People should be playing the slaves who are uprising, because this is a very serious game about kind of overcoming the enslavement of, yeah, and then saying, okay, there's a discomfort in terms of how much are you asking people to do? Are you asking people to, for example, okay, let me throw up the banner for a moment. Just so, yeah, there's a game. I don't know if you're familiar with Brenda Romero's Train.
No.
So in this game, it is a game in which, okay, wow. So how do I talk about this? So this game, you've got trains and you are delivering little people, and then you're sending them to different destinations, and then they get off, and then you go back and forth, and there's some sorts of points, I think. Honestly, there's only one copy on the world, and it was more of an art piece than a, it's definitely not a mass-produced game. There is literally only one copy. Anyway, so Brenda would stand there, explain the game, and then eventually it would dawn on people that what they're doing is they're actually sending these people to concentration camps. So as the player, you are playing a Nazi operator, and you are playing... so parts of the game is that when you realize you are doing this horrible thing, what's your reaction?
Yeah.
Do you stop playing? Do you feel like you have to keep playing because you've started the game? Do you kind of carry on? Do you subvert the rules of the game? Brenda saw people who said, okay, now I'm going to actually try to start sending as few people as I can to these places and trying to play within the rules of the game, but not trying for the highest score. And so there is a question about who are you forcing the players to play as, and but also addressing these issues and being the balance of sharing that story, as uncomfortable as that story might be. This is a story that we all should do well to remember, if you know what I mean, so we do not repeat the atrocities in the future.
So I think that's actually it's about finding balance, and that finding balance it can be very difficult if especially if the only thing that is speaking for a designer or a publishing company is the game, or maybe the press release that they've sent. But at that moment in the room, what is speaking for you is the game and what you've written down. So, but I'll just talk from my own perspective, because it's a different thing for someone who has designed one game. It's easy to talk about just the one game and everything. But for us that we have separate games and they're all different things around it, it's about finding balance. For instance, I've I think in convention 2018, now a lady walks up to me and she was complaining of why I designed Safe Journey. And she was complaining bitterly that it doesn't show Nigeria in a good way. And, I was at first I was taken aback, and reflecting on it, it's actually good because she took ownership of the game and she could give feedback. But at the same time, I've seen a lot of other people that once they see it, they are all shouting, "Whoa, this is true! Oh, whoa, this is true!" Like it's not a normal thing when you Google and say, okay, Google Map and try to calculate the distance of a journey, but and then the reality is absolutely different because when you have to add another 4 hours. So it's about how people understand it, the whole story. Just like you said about the game, it's now, do you change the rules? Do you stop playing? Do you discuss it? And but for me, what I always do is I'm not there to change anybody for who they are, but I just want to tell you that this is happening, and this is how I interpret it. Now, what you make out of it should I take little responsibility from what you how you respond, because now it's not left for you to maybe read more about it, search more about it, talk more about it, or start a conversation about it. Start a conversation about it. But this is how I've been able to interpret what I was born into, and things I've experienced myself. Because a lot of things, I've probably experienced everything on Safe Journey, everything on Safe Journey, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Now, some of the games we've designed, and even the upcoming ones, some I've experienced, some I've listened to people experience it, and it has happened over and over again. Now, but I'm not designing the game for me to address the issue, because I also have to think on the gaming component, the replayability, for it to be played, for people to love playing the game. That I have to also think of that part. But I want you to see that this happens in a part of the world, and we could do so. There are things that we've not been able to do right, like in terms of the narratives, writing it properly, and that's because of resources. And when I talk about resources, I'm not just talking of material resources, but even in terms of knowledge resources. Understanding what are the vocabularies used in the industry each day. Because you want it to be universal, so you have to also adapt to universal language. So how do you, whatever it could be. So we are all working on it. Like Safe Journey, Village War, for instance, it comes with a storybook that is 12-paged. So that reading that 12 page with the graphics, you already assume the character, and
So this is not a rules book. This is
not
a
the rules.
storybook to tell you about the history of really what's
Yes,
happening.
and what inspired the arts as well, so that when you now read the rule books, you can relate to that. And then, like we are talking at the back channel, we also had to engage other very nice people in the industry to read those rule books and understand if they are also understanding what we try to portray. So it's a designer thing and also a player thing. So if you read about if you play a game and there is a story behind it, I'm not sure I can't interpret what a designer is saying. But what I usually want is, for all my games, is this is happening. Now, I'm not trying to force this or this on you, but you can go read about it. You can start what you want to start about, but this is happening.
I mean, I guess it's been interesting. I think there's so much more that we could talk about. And I know Alan had the question of some wonderful books turn out to have rubbish endings. Is this a wonderful or a rubbish story, or both, or neither? Well, I would say it's surely in the middle, and it's just a good story that, if it had a better ending, would be excellent. But I mean, it's the same with games. I mean, I think that a game has to have that narrative. Well, a thematic game, let's say, should have mechanical representation. I'm not saying that every game has to be thematic. I mean, Yogi isn't particularly thematic. Sure, you get to see these people, and there's representation of people.
Yeah.
And yes, again, there is some. I'm not going to lie. Like, I would have preferred the old artwork, by which I mean the first cover that Simon Crusoe drew, But yeah, there's when I look at it and on the cover, actually, yeah, basically everyone on the cover is white. You know, white, 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 white. I mean, it's not like meant to be a checklist, but literally everyone is white except for Frankenstein on here, and then there's one person of color here, and who's darker skinned. And you know, again, Zygmunt did a great job, and I think that especially for the sequel, Simon Caruso did a good job of inclusivity. But yeah, for a thematic game, sorry about that tangent. Man, I'm all about the tangents today, aren't we? I mean, I said this to Jason yesterday, where we basically had a tangent and then we had a tangent to the tangent. It's like, okay, we need to get back on track. Anyway, so, but for a thematic game, you want to have some sense of direct, this thing in the game represents this thing in reality.
Yeah.
And I think the key difference, whether it's a good story or not, I mean, that's going to depend on so many facets. And I think
Yeah.
for a game, the most important thing, it always has to be the playing experience. You can't say, okay, the most important thing is that it comes into a story which will finish in a way that a book would finish, because in a game, in a book, you've got the three act structure, and then it comes up into a climax, and then you've got the denouement, where after the ring is thrown into the fire, then you have another like 50 pages about all the parties that they have, and then all the friendships and everything that, yeah. And apparently
Just
everyone watches me because I'm really always on topic. So they all watch me for the wrong reasons.
no, Bess, just to add on what you just said, and also to respond to the question about the parts of the story. Some games as well, the stories starts and end in a round. So before everyone, if say five people are playing the game, if five people are playing the game, yeah, so a story can end within just that. Once you start a new round, that is a whole new set. So it depends, but just like you said, how fun a game story is depends on the players, and most times is when there is, say, a game lead, someone that's probably read the story and played the game over and over, who can now help translate. You know, Tobina likes to do that stuff a lot. So anytime it's once it's a game that has a story, I don't know how he just switches to, he'll start building fantasy. And sometimes I'm finding to now key into his story, his own fantasy, but he likes to do, it depends on the person that is probably teaching others the game. If you're teaching people the game and you're also telling them the story and how it relates to them, okay, now, you play the card and you now use the dialogue, or you do some kind of body actions to relate to what you're playing. It makes it fun. And then when people play game and then they're playing it again the second time, even if it's an abstract game, it makes more sense just because you're playing it again. Because now there are new, like we were talking about, you want to now beat the game itself, not the players. So how fun a game is, the artwork is important. Having good miniatures and tokens are important, but also the people playing it. If one person, like we've seen a lot happen in the cafe, now people are excited about the game, and then the group influencer doesn't like the game, and then nobody likes the game all of a sudden. Like, it happens on a repeat. So most times we now try to figure out who is the influencer in the group, because that's the person we will have to sell this game to. Because once he or she says, "Oh, we want to play this," every other person wants to play that particular game. So those are all the whole thing. There are a lot of things that makes a game story fun.
I mean, a game story is obviously very different because when you've got the completion, I mean, like, it feels like you've got in a book or in a film, let's say you manage to go and complete the objective. Let's say a typical story. Oh, we lost Casey for a moment. In a typical story, there's the call to adventure, the hero's journey, like Joseph Campbell, all that rubbish. Sorry, I'm not calling Joseph Campbell rubbish. I'm just saying that, you know, it's the tried out trope of, okay, going through all this stuff. But anyway, so you've got this objective. You manage to achieve the thing. You manage to destroy the Death Star, or you manage to find inner peace, or you manage to find your long lost father. And once you've achieved that thing in a film, you don't want the film to end exactly that second. You want it to last at least another little bit, another minute. Like,
It's a good film.
there's like maybe 0.1% of exceptions, but you want it to last a little bit longer. So that's, oh my God, now you can see, oh, you found your long lost father. Now we reunite. Maybe they hug, maybe they kind of embrace, and then it's okay. What's impact?
Or maybe they don't get along.
Just enjoying the moment and basking in that for a moment. Now, with a game, once you've achieved the goal, once you've got your 11 points, or once you've managed to cure these diseases, or once you've managed to get the spaceship to the end of the labyrinth, or whatever, then okay, I managed to do it. And then the denouement, the kind of wind down, is basically just sitting back and basking in your own glory. It's okay, we've finished the last turn in Agricola. Now we can count up the points. Okay, we've finished the last bit in Energy Empire. Now we reveal our achievements. That is kind of the wind down. And yeah, obviously we've got but if that was the normal state of affairs, I mean, there's a reason why I'd sing the bye-bye song at the end of these shows, because I don't like things that don't have a little bit of a wind down. Because for me, it's like, okay, well, bye-bye. That's it's nice to have a little kind of jingle at the end, where I call it a jingle. I basically just sing it. It's not like it's pre-recorded or anything, or very low tech here. And yeah, so oops, I just saw your message. Yeah, with a game when you're bringing people back in, that's true. I think that we've talked so much about this. We've not really delved into the nitty-gritty. I think that whether it's with you or with other people, I would like to delve into a bit more of what Alex is talking about, sharing stories not only through things we've written, but through the actions of the players, talking about different ways that board games can tell stories. And if we rush through my normal thing as we wind down, where's my thing gone? Oh yeah, so defining things, sharing stories. I think I've realized through this talk, okay, there's 3 types of games. This is my new hypothesis. Okay, listen and tell me if you agree. So I think there's 3 types of games. One type of game, and I guess there could be a mixture, so one type of game is where the thing that you're doing in the game is exactly what you're doing, like Mindleaf, where it's a pusher, it's a puller. And so these are what is called abstract games, although you could also call them literal games, where what it represents is literally what it is. You feel it, you enjoy the wood. When I play Go, yes, it's arguably a metaphor for war, but it's really okay. Even Hex even more so, because there is no metaphor there. It's just putting pieces onto a hexagonal grid. Azul? No, Azul has a theme.
That is my favorite game. Like
so Azul, I think, comes into the second category, where it's based on a theme or a story or an experience that you have had in the real world, or that you maybe research about. Whereas I think, yeah, sure, Azul isn't the strongest theme, but I think that there is some sort of, like, I think that Azul maybe pushes, it's kind of in that Go category, or chess, where chess, yes, it's kind of abstract, but there is a theme. and then
Yeah.
you've got like these three triangles, and maybe you can be anywhere on this triangle. So like the second corner is themes that we know about from the real world, whether it's the stained glass or the subsistence farming, or the wars that go on in villages, or the discrimination that we experience in real life. And then for me, the third triangle is like things that we invent ourselves. So obviously, and I'm actually trying to think of examples of this. There's a lots of stuff like Twilight Imperium and Eclipse. Pandemic. I mean,
What about
Pandemic, it kind of seems to be partially based on truth. I mean, it's kind of like
Sheriff of Nottingham?
no, kind of, because
Is
Sheriff of
it real?
Nottingham is an interesting example where that's a pre-existing story, but the story isn't really a work of truth, but
Yes,
it is
it's
still a
fiction.
cultural story. And so actually that whole Sheriff of Nottingham, I mean, there's so many cultural stories about the European and American stories, just because these are rich countries, and so we have the privilege of being able to share this with the world. And so yes, I guess we've got the focus on the what the game actually is. On the second triangle, we've got the tapping into what exists in reality or those cultural stories. And on the third triangle segments of the triangle, we've got these kinds of invention of maybe the alien races in Cosmic Encounter, or I keep going to aliens, or indeed like some zombies. And you could say that some zombies, like in Dead of Winter, yes, there's a lot of fiction there, but Dead of Winter actually makes it a lot truer. I mean, there's still elements of realism in it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, actually, I was reading a comment.
So yeah, so we've got comment.
But I also think with the alien, do you not think games on alien or galaxies are already on pre-existing stories? Does that count as putting them in the third particular, the third triangle? Like bearing in fact, like there are a lot of stories that are coming out, like books, movies. So it's kind of becoming even a cultural thing. Like when you talk about fantasies and aliens, they are kind of baseline that everybody should know about them. For instance, there are, if you hear UFOs, that you're talking about aliens, and then we already
I guess that's an
just
interesting
you
thing. Like even these fictional stories come from a place of culture,
becomes
from a place
yes.
of experience. And Alan's slightly misrepresented what I wrote. Yeah, that's the first type is the focus on the pieces. Like, okay, that's fair. Okay, that's fair what you've written, but the focus is on the pieces, and yeah, sure, doing what you're doing, that's fine. It's a theme of something that exists. And but the third type of game was for me based on something that you invent. So it's not based on the culture, it's more based on
Because
the invention of the individual. And I
I think
guess
the
what
culture is in the second. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
for me, culture is the second. For me, culture is the reality that, okay, we all live in this shared reality, and I am spreading that reality via the method of the games. And why does this even matter? Why should we care about this? I mean, do we even want to do these whole pros and pitfalls? Because to me, it feels like we just want to learn more about the world around us, surely. And surely when Elizabeth Hargrave tells us about the mariposas, butterflies, that fly off and they make the same journey for generations halfway across the world, that's pretty cool.
exactly.
And or when someone says, hey, this is subsistence farming, that's okay, this is something that happened many years ago, that's like, and when I hear about, so maybe I think that it just tells us something about the world. It shares and it brings us all together, because now I know a little bit more about KC, because by virtue of Safe Journey, you know, I know a little bit more and I understand things, and yeah, we can quibble about exactly how that was done and whether it was done well or not. But my point is that I think there's no denying that sharing these personal stories, there's so much value to it.
Yeah, I quite agree. And beyond other uh, method of story sharing, one thing I find unique about game is that it doesn't just it's not just informative. It's more of active, because you're now part of that story and you're experiencing it. It's not I love movies, and I like reading a little story, but I love movies. But when I play game, your emotions can go up and down, because you're now part of the story, and it's different for me anyway. That's why I see board games more special in storytelling, because your emotions are there. You've been enthusiastically engaged in some way. It's something that if you feel that emotion, you always remember that story. Wherever you feel that emotion, you remember that story. So it's and if or someone mentioned that game, you remember the emotions. So it works both ways. And I I want people to experience that too. It's
Um, yeah, sorry, you're
it's
starting to break up. Just a couple of seconds. Okay.
each games that we are doing. I think that's
Sorry, Casey. You're
what we said
really breaking
that
up.
game.
Oh,
What about
you're
now?
back? No.
Okay, sorry. So
Oh, you're back.
I was making reference.
It's the 90-minute time limit with Nigeria. You
Yeah.
know, there's a tax on how much internet we can
Can you
send.
hear me
90 minutes is the
now?
maximum.
Okay. What
Sorry,
about
I'm
now? Can
just
you hear me
joking
now?
because um so I'm sorry we missed a lot of that, but I think that in the interest of moving on, I oh, we had a question from Alan about my triangle idea, and I think the triangle is almost like a focus. So a focus on the actual components and what you're doing. And by the components, I don't mean what the components represent. I don't mean the picture on the components. I mean the actual quality of the wood. And it's like how abstract art is actually very literal, and a focus on that. And the second is the focus on what exists, and the second focus on invention. And so, yes, absolutely, you could have all three. And I think it's just a question on how much you focus on one or the other. And it's probably like, do you embody the whole triangle, or do you embody, like, it's probably one of those, you know, little graphs where you've got like kinds of less in one quadrant and less more in another quadrant. I mean, that's my idea. It's just a new way of thinking about things. How can sharing cultures be bad? I mean, I don't see a downside to it, frankly. I see it as long as your game is fun to play. The only downside is if you are sharing the culture and that is the only good thing about the game. Because at a
Yeah.
certain point, it's like, well, why do you not write a book? It has to be a game first and foremost. So I
Yes,
think
that's
the
before.
only pitfall is if you say, well, this is going to be a game about this amazing thing, and because this thing is amazing, my game is going to be amazing. No, that's not true at all. And the game itself has to be fun to play.
Again. Yeah. I try quite
Um,
Then it also depends. So it also depends on the environment where you're telling a story. So it's not all environments that is as free as all. So for instance, there are things that even if a story, uh, how people also perceive that story. Just like I said about how a lady walked up and was felt bad that this story shouldn't come out. And so sometimes people have been um, uh,
Mm.
people have actually been. I don't want to use very very negative words, but people have been threatened, and those threats carried out for even lesser things just because of culture. It's a sensitive things. How you say it also matter. And I know it's for the game in a gaming environment, it's not an issue, but sometimes the way stories are also shared could also, that's the bad side. That sometimes I when I design a game, I try to call my friends that I from those culture and like, hey, I'm trying to add this component. Is it good? Can I go ahead? Is it safe first? And then can I go ahead and do it? And they are just they are sometimes they're like, okay, if you do it this way, it could work, or if you don't even do it. We have those kind of conversation, and we have to go and research. But again, they are not authorities. They can't say, "Oh, I go ahead and you use." So sometimes it's something that, again, it's something about environment. There are stories you can't share because of.
I think that's really true, and I don't think it's right to say. I mean, board games do have a massive impact upon people, and I
Yeah.
do believe that board games have the potential for good, but also for evil. Like board
Yeah.
games can offend, and I think that's correct. And
Yes. Yes.
what you just said, like if there's something about your culture, maybe you don't want to share it, and but should these things be painted over, or should we embrace the reality of what things are? That's the question. I think that's the more important thing is if there's a story that a I guess it comes into cultural appropriation actually now I think about it. Something that I'm going to, I believe, talk with Jay about on next Friday. Where, yeah, if you're sharing stories that are not your stories to share, then that can be problematic. If you're sharing stories that you do have to think about, is this game potentially going to do any harm? And in most cases, the answer to that is no, but it has to be on your mind. Hello? Oh, has KC frozen for everyone else? Um, so I'm going to recap. So we talked about we talked about sharing stories. That's what we did. We talked about brilliant things, which was t-shirts. T-shirts are brilliant. Um, Games we've been playing, I've not played. Oh no, I beat Alan on that Crazy Farmers and the Clutter's Electrics, and I really like it. And um, I've enjoyed Dixit and Bossy. And yeah, there's been a lot to enjoy. But generally, we've been chatting about sharing these cultural stories, about the fact that it's about these shared perspectives that you have, and it's about allowing other people to see the perspectives that you or other members of your community, whether that community is um, your tribe, your city, the people of your nation, the people of your church who worship a particular saint, um, or maybe the people who really love a particular interest. Maybe you're part of the knitting community, and maybe there's certain stories within knitting. I don't know. Like I know that there's a lot of stories within the pole dance community where people are kind of going back and forth of wanting to keep it as a sport, but also wanting to keep it open to sexuality. and that is a really interesting story. And so, yeah, that is what we've been chatting about. So that is my recap. Oh gosh, I've got too many. There we go. Recap. Thank you. I want to say thank you to everyone who's been watching. I want to say thank you to Alex, Alan,
Thank
Xate,
you.
J Fool's Guard. It's lovely to have you watching, and anybody else who's watching this after the fact or right now and is just lurking. But if you're watching this, thank you very much for watching,
Thank you.
and I hope that you get something out of it. I hope that you have maybe gotten some enjoyment, or maybe it's changed your views. Yeah, thank you very much for watching.
Thank you. Thank you.
And most importantly, thank you, Casey.
I got it this time. Thank you too, guys. Thank you. Thank you. And well done. I mean, it takes some level of commitment. I mean, when you started and then doing it, 44 episodes. Well done. I try to do. I can't. I just run away. Well done. And I'm so sorry. I have to apologize on live TV for the last. It was funny, but it was a very, very busy day, and I was prepared and overslept. So I woke up 2 hours after the event. I was like, oh my, and I was sleeping in a very uncomfortable position so that I don't oversleep, and yet I overslept.
So Casey, for those who don't know, is talking about one of the Tuesday gaming streams where Casey didn't manage to make it. I think we did play your game at the end, actually, just the two of us, myself and Andrew Dennison, and then we had comments. I don't know if you watched it afterwards.
I did.
But yeah, you should go back and watch it because we did actually play it.
I will,
But,
Def.
yeah,
I will
for
go
sure,
and watch it now.
I know that our connection, sadly, the internet is always a problem, and I'm aware that the infrastructure where you live is maybe not as good as it is in the capital of the United Kingdom, where again I'm aware
Not for
of
everyone.
all the privileges. I mean, I hear that Iceland has the best internet, but
I want to move there.
I want to yeah, it's all good, and it would be lovely to have you on for a future Tuesday. Let me know, get in touch. And for everyone who's watching, if you're wondering how can I get in touch with Bez, then if you wish to buy my stuff, it is stuffbybez.bigcartel.com, where you can buy my stuff, and you can now even buy Yogi, because I've got 24 copies now. Twitter.com/stuffbez, where I tweet a lot. Instagram.com/stuffbez, where I share my favorite pictures of games I've been playing, games I made, or pretty things. Twitch.tv/stuffbez, where I tweet, stream. Facebook.com/thingsbybez is a thing, and stuffbybez@gmail.com, where you can get in touch for any reason. And if people want to get in touch with KC, then there's links on the YouTube or the Facebook, and I will try and repaste it just now in the Twitch. But can you tell us how you would like to be found? Oh, are you muted? Yeah, you've muted yourself.
Okay. So you could just go to www.nibcardgames.com, or you could on any of the social media platforms, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, just search NIBCARD Games. So NIBCARD Games, NIBCARD Games, and you just see anything you want to say about us. And then you can send direct messages. I would respond, or you can send us an email on our website. Yeah, thanks for sharing, Bess. So yeah, that's it.
Very welcome. And now, as we get to the end, what are we looking forward to? Hopes and ambitions. It's over to you for this final section. And I invite everybody to tell me what you're looking forward to, whether it's something just after this stream, whether you're going to eat a delicious thing if you've not already eaten. if you're going to go for a walk, maybe you're meeting a friend, maybe you're just going to watch another video, maybe you're going to, I don't know, maybe you're going to do something tomorrow, maybe you're going to start a project. For me personally, I guess I've started talking about it. Yes, I'm going to eat something. I'm going to then go for a walk with my friend Betsy. I'm going to have a distance walk. So I'm really looking forward to seeing Betsy. It's been a long time. And then, yeah, I'm going to get tomorrow. I'm going to get on top of writing the LARP, and yeah, that's generally what I'm looking forward to. How about you, Casey?
This week is work. So the work part is I'm actually looking forward to getting so each production for us is better than the last. So we are looking forward to making all the games that will be ordered. And I'm also looking forward to finally shipping out games to BGG. So Board Game Gig ordered set of our games. And I'm actually hopeful and looking forward to what it could do. So it's better if people already established try to teach our games. I'm looking forward to that. I'm also looking forward to there's an activity we want to do as friend, paintball. So once again, do you say play or shoot paintball? So I'm I'm putting my mind. So you shoot. So we're going to do that tomorrow.
Oh no, wait, well, you shoot it when you're actually shooting it. But I would
But
say I'm
you're
going to.
playing.
I would
But
say I'm
you're,
going to play paintball.
so we're going to do that. I'm actually looking for it because it's be the first time we'll be going out in a very long while, like to do a recreational activity outside the cafe. So yeah,
Sounds quite
I'll
cool.
send pictures.
That is super awesome.
Thanks.
We've got Sates who's looking forward to playing Scythe or Terraforming Mars on stream today with a strange monkey. Alan is looking forward to rewatching this episode. I'm assuming that's a joke. They do have another 3D printer to set up and to build double the number of killer robots if they wanted. And that is everything. If you have not already shared, feel free to. As always, I hope that you do have something in your heart that you are looking forward to and that you are hoping for. Please, if you've enjoyed this, share, spread the word, and also, yeah, if you've got any ideas for people that you would really like to be on the show or topics that you would like us to get into, then please reach out. My next stream is going to be tomorrow at the usual time of 10 a.m. UK time, which is also Nigerian time. But I think 12, I think it's 11 a.m. in Denmark or in Germany or in France or some other time in whichever other country you are. And tomorrow I'm going to talk about my streaming. Please watch it and get in touch and give me feedback, even if you can't watch live. Then on Monday, I'm talking to Lolvi about safety and LARP. Tuesday is marketing with Dina. Then we're going to be playing something at 8 p.m. It's basically 10 a.m. every day, 8 p.m. Tuesday, all UK time. And I think, yeah, we've got shouts outs to needing more printers to make more printers. And there's only one thing left to do. And that one thing is to sing bye, 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 bye. This is the goodbye song. Bye, 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 bye. Thank you for watching along. Bye, 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 bye. This is the end of the show. Bye, 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 bye. Time to go. Bye, 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 bye. This is the goodbye song. Bye, 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 bye. Thank you for watching along.
Thank you so much for watching.
Bye, 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 bye. This is the end of the show. Bye, 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 bye. And now it's time to go. Bye-bye.
Bye.